Every once in a while, Paradox likes to throw us a giant curveball when it comes to the underlying systems within the game, and this is no other time. No, it does not have to do with cubic-shaped stars and planets. That's a whole different ballgame that we'll talk about some other time. It is, of course, the movement of Ascensions from being a single-click go button to it being a tradition, as well as a dedicated tradition for cybernetics. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. In general, the changes to Ascension paths are very good. They are a very needed transition into the game, especially since traditions are involved. Ascensions were originally introduced into Utopia, and now that obviously we have the tradition system, they're finally being integrated into that. Does that mean that we're going to get additional tradition slots? We don't know at this moment in time. All we know is that we're going to see the Psionic path is rather interesting. It has 5 new steps, and that basically allows you to gradually become a Psionic Empire instead of going all the way, as well as a unlocker. So what would we previously have? Well, previously you would become a telepath instantly, and that would be not necessarily the best thing in the world. And in addition to that, you would get access to the Shroud. This has changed quite significantly. Basically, what is new is that things like Thought Enforcement, which is a technology that can be unlocked within the game after you've gotten psionics, will be integrated into the tradition path system. And this is something that we want to keep in mind because we'll have all of these very cool options to get all of that. We also get a new tradition called the Mind Readers, which basically gives us a brand new Empire Edict, which allows us to get sight beyond sight. So for those of you who want to get the Sword of Omens, this is probably the way to go. Basically what happens there is that ship navigators will have increased sensor range, so they can see faster, and also a massive bonus to hyperdrive, cooldown, charge time, as well as the bonuses to quantum catapult. So quantum catapult is one of those technologies that I feel is a little bit underrepresented, and it was really cool to see to have in the previous major update, but I didn't really use it all that much, and now we're going to get some bonuses there. In addition to that, once you finish that tradition tree, you will get a 50 Edict Fund bonus, as well as a special project that allows you to get a covenant with a random Shroud entity. And apparently, from what I understand, this is that those Shroud entity will be weighted depending on what type of ethics you have. So, if you're a Fanatic Purifier who also happens to be Psionic, who knows, you may get the end. And in addition to all of that, there is a lot of cool boons, like Latent Psionic and Psionic Core being introduced there. We get additional bonuses from Unity. Telepaths will get planet-wide resource bonuses on pops instead of the other things that we had before, and a whole slew more. In addition to that, well, sadly, actually, is that we do not get hive-minded psionics in that sense. So that's unfortunate, but apparently that would require a massive redesign of how hive minds work, and that's sadly not on the cards right now. Regardless, next up, Genetic Ascension. One of my personal favorites that is hilariously underpowered, or at least it was in the past, but now we're going to see new changes here that are going to be a little bit more interesting. So we're going to have a more logical distribution of the flow of resources there. So, first things we got Efficient Cloning, which is a update for the clone vats. Once you unlock this particular tree, you will get access to the clone vats. But basically what it does is, it doubles the output of clone vats, so you're going to get increased pop growth, or at least pop assembly, from clone vats. So filling up a planet with pops is going to be relatively easy, which already makes this one of the more powerful versions that you can have in the game. Enhanced Expression will allow you to add another trait pick on your modified species, which means you can even get more traits into your species, which is really, really nice. Once you complete genetic traditions, you will also get access to a brand new transgenesis technology, and this is the more interesting stuff. You can have, for instance, Leviathan-based traits like Drake Scale, which basically allows you to generate monthly alloys for every single pop that you have. 0.025, still you need 200 pops for a single alloy to be generated, but still that can have some pretty big knock-on effects overall. And getting free alloys is pretty nice, even though I prefer to have some of the strategic resources like gas, motes, or crystals, but it's nice, and it also increases the army health, so that's kind of cool. Of course, if you have any other resource generation like the gases or any of the lithoid traits, then you cannot have this. Voidling, which is from the Void spawn, if you take that one down, this is probably the more interesting one. It replaces all food or mineral upkeep with energy upkeep. So it effectively comes the same as, say, radiotrophic, but on any planet, where you can just have upkeep of just energy on your normal pops. That's insanity. And also, you can have a minimum of 50% habitability on any planet, and any additional bonuses you have on top of that, it just means that you can live anywhere. Because the Void Spawn, well, it lives in space, therefore you can get those bonuses. If you kill the Tajanki Matriarch, then you can get a trait that's budding to every single pop, which improves assembly of pops, which means for every 200 pops, you can get additional pop growth. At least it's 0.05 per normal pop times 200. You get that 1.0 pop growth, which can actually have some major knock-on effects. But that's really cool. I really like this idea of adding Leviathan-style traits into species and being able to leverage that. It's very unique, and it makes things a lot more interesting. There's also brand new advanced traits that you can get by the genetic creation pick in the actual tradition tree. So, Vat Grown reduces pop growth speed, but increases pop assembly speed, both by 25%. And also reduces housing usage, which basically means is if you go all the way into the genetic engineering path, you can get some crazy pop growth speeds, especially in combination with those aforementioned cloning vats. Felsic, which is a lithoid variant, essentially it increases minerals from livestock and processing by +2. So lithoids with, more lithoids livestock will get some pretty crazy mineral output there. And then natural machinist, even in this particular case, which is a 2 cost, it will basically gives you plus 10% alloys from jobs, as well as plus 10% consumer goods. Basically, it is... I would even go so far as to say that it is basically... Yeah, it is basically a variation of Master Crafters, except it is a species trait, which is pretty darn awesome. That's pretty darn crazy. Next up is Cybernetic and Ascensions. Now, these two have been split up in 2 separate categories. So we've got the Flesh is Weak, which is the special cybernetic variety. This one is brand new and basically adds a whole bunch of very cool things, including the amazingness of the Crucible Worlds, which is a brand new type of planet that the Cybernetics can get and basically churn out tons and tons of cyborgs as much as you want. So yeah, this also applies to hive minds, and they've got their own traditions, which are pretty darn crazy as well, including something called organ harvesting, which basically allows you to improve pop growth speed if your planet is being purged. So that makes perfect sense. So purging allows for faster pop growth speed, which is, I think, is really cool, because it basically means that you can go out there into the galaxy, continue to harvest your way through planets, and increase your body sizes by just harvesting pops. I really like this idea, and it is pretty darn crazy. Yeah, Cybernetics in addition are just very, very cool, and there's a lot of very interesting things that are going on here. And all the bonuses are applied to regular Cybernetic empires, hive-minded, as I already mentioned. Driven assimilators get their own tree, so this is a massive, massive overhaul that we're going to be seeing coming into this. Finally, there are Cybernetics. So, Cybernetics has seen some significant changes. First of all, the Synthetic Age Ascension perk was only available to machine intelligence before. It still is, but they will get their own little tree that applies to this. In addition to that, Synthetic Evolution, which is the regular tree, which will require droids technology, and then you can gain Synthetic to follow up then and get the Synthetic traditions. There's a lot of some really cool things going on here, such as, and I'm quickly going to read through some of these, synthetic traditions, synthetic age, grand synthetic evolution special project. Makes perfect sense. Solid state actuators plus additional robot modification spots. Getting additional trait picks for the robots on the finisher. Additional robot machine output on optimized algorithms. There are so many of these that I cannot even start to go all over them one by one and just put everything into place. But getting synthetics for yourself could be a very interesting way to go without having to jump through the hoops that is the cyborg setup first. Basically what it boils down to, overall, you gain one Ascension slot whilst losing a tradition slot, because you don't necessarily need to have 2 slots assigned to Ascensions. You just get 1 slot and you sacrifice the tradition to do so, which overall I think is pretty worthwhile. In general, I would say that the engineered evolution one by far seems to be the most interesting one in my perspective, because I love the idea of being able to genetically engineer yourself into Leviathan stuff, and it also opens the door to all sorts of very interesting scenarios. Right now we only have 3 Leviathans that are on this list, but this could expand with every single Leviathan. And it just adds more value to Utopia in general. It is awesome. This is the kind of thing that I really, really like. I think this has been a change that's been a long time coming. And all of these changes are going to have impact in the way you play, because it's going to take longer to get all these Ascensions online. But the choices of what Ascension you're going to pick is going to have more impact due to all the traditions and all the impact that are attached to that. Now, all of this is going to be part of the Orion patch, but also part of the open beta that will run for said Orion patch before it actually lands. Some of this stuff may seem very, very overpowered, but I'm going to link the... I'm actually going to link the dev diary in the description below, and then you can go have a further read and go in a little bit more detail. But overall, I think this is a great, great change, and I'm really looking forward to see all of this stuff being added into the game. New Ascension paths are awesome, and having Psionic, having Cybernetic, having Synthetic, having genetic engineering being part of traditions is a great step, and I really hope that we're going to see more stuff like this in the future. What do you think? Do you like this change? Do you think that we're going to need this for some reason? I think we do, because the changes are, as I said, already great. Leave your comments below. In the meantime, though, we're going to wrap things up here. I'm currently working on a little video that involves cubed worlds, in case you hadn't directly noticed, but we'll get to that very soon. In the meantime, though, we're going to wrap things up here. Leave your comments below, as already mentioned, and thank you to my patrons. And until next time, take good care of yourselves, and as always, each other.